What's up, it's the Coaster Craze, and today I'm bringing back an old series, Park Futures, where I talk about the next 5 years with future predictions. This time I'm talking about my favorite amusement park, Hersheypark. They're a park that gets a lot of new additions. They recently just got the massive Chocolate Town entrance area expansion. So before I get started, I thought it's best to describe what my Park Futures videos entail, because it's been like 2.5 years since my last ones, where I did Six Flags America and Six Flags Great Adventure. I've been holding off a little bit because of the pandemic and everything's so uncertain, but I thought it's finally time to bring it back with Hersheypark. So basically, it is a 5-year plan of sorts, and like other Park Future Predictions videos, but where it differs is that I don't assign each ride and attraction a specific year, but instead I kind of consolidate lots of possible rumors that are spreading and kind of like my own thoughts as well, and put each different ride and attraction into 5 different categories: unlikely, possible, likely, very likely, and almost definite. And I'll walk through why I think that for each one, how likely I think it's going to come to the park, where I think it's going to come, and if we know more information, I'll go further in depth and maybe talk about like a specific year as well. So without further ado, let's get right on with the video with the unlikely category. Basically, the unlikely category are ones that, yes, there's an inkling of possibility, but I just don't see it happening in the next 5 years. And the first one I'd like to discuss is the Giga Coaster, which is obviously a popular rumor for any major park. And Hersheypark is one of the biggest, so it makes sense for them to maybe sometime get a Giga Coaster. They're willing to spend the big bucks on a new attraction, so it definitely is possible, but I just don't see it happening in the next 5 years whatsoever, especially after they just got Candemonium and Chocolate Town. Maybe in the next 10 years, but I think it's something that's further down the road, so very unlikely. Next are 2 very popular clones and ride types in the Six Flags chain that are making their way into the Cedar Fair as well. So the first is the S&S 40 Free Spin, and this is a really fun attraction. It's probably a bit too small for Hersheypark, although Six Flags has added it to big parks, and now it's being added to King's Dominion next year. But I just don't see it happening to Hersheypark in the next 5 years, because it's pretty close to Great Adventure, and Great Adventure already has Joker, so I just don't see it happening. Same thing goes for the RMC Raptors. I'll talk about it later, but I think another RMC is possible. But even though RMC Raptors are a big thing in the industry right now, it seems a bit too small capacity for Hersheypark. So I don't think they're going to get the Wonder Woman / Railblazer prototype clone. And sure, it's possible they'll get the higher capacity one like Jersey Devil that's going to Great Adventure. But again, Great Adventure is not too far from Hersheypark. And I think if they are going to get the RMC single rail coaster, it'll be a T-Rex. Whether it's going to be the first T-Rex or not, I don't know, but I don't think it's happening in the next 5 years. And finally, in the unlikely category is a major family type attraction, the River Rapids, which is a personal favorite of mine. Hersheypark actually used to have a River Rapids attraction, but was taken out when they were expanding the Boardwalk Water Park. So it is maybe the slightest bit possible, because we have been seeing some parks getting major new River Rapids attractions like Infinity Falls at SeaWorld Orlando or Mystic River Falls at Silver Dollar City, where they're highly themed, big, they have maybe a big splashdown. So it is possible if they're willing to spend the big bucks and they have enough land to do it. I just do not see this happening, especially when they already removed the River Rapids attraction. So now I'm going to talk about some possible attractions, and what this means is basically it can happen, but there's no likely chance. And the first one is the B&M Looper. So right now they only have one B&M Looper, that's Great Bear. It's an inverted coaster. So the big possibilities you think about are Flyer. I would love to see a Flyer happen. There hasn't been a new B&M Flyer in America though since 2009 with Manta, so I don't know if that will occur, but it would be a perfect fit for the park, and they could really go all out making a massive new flying coaster. Another possibility is a B&M Wing Coaster, because that's particularly popular these days, but they already have Skyrush, which has some wing seats, so it seems like a pretty odd choice, and I don't really see that one happening. Another one that I think is really likely, and perhaps the most likely of the B&M Loopers, is the dive coaster, because it's big, it draws in a lot of guests, it's very popular these days. It's currently B&M's most popular model, I'm pretty sure, and you're seeing them consistently being added in North America these past few years, so it would be awesome if Hersheypark got a record breaker for it. It would be their biggest coaster in the park. I could see this happening in maybe 5 years or 4 years from now, even though it is a pretty big expense. Other possibilities are the Floorless Coaster. Again, B&M isn't really making these anymore, but maybe they would bring it back or relocate one to Hersheypark, who knows. And then, of course, there's the Surf Coaster, which is a little bit like the stand-up coaster. It's a new concept. We think it's going to be going to SeaWorld Orlando first. Could be a cool addition to Hersheypark if these are well received. It would be very different from anything else they have in the park. Then, in terms of other possibilities, there's the Family Coaster. That's like a multi-launch particularly, because I feel like that's something that Hersheypark really needs. A park of this size should have more than one launch coaster. Yes, Storm Runner is phenomenal, but a family launch or just any type of multi-launch would be very, very different. So family multi-launches could be something like the Premier Rides ones, like an outdoor version of Revenge of the Mummy at Universal, or maybe a kind of themed one like Backlot Stunt Coaster, or they could go with the motorbike coaster. It doesn't have to be as themed, of course, it's like Hagrid's Motorbike Adventure, but something that's like of that sort. It's like Wavebreaker at SeaWorld San Antonio, because those are very popular these days. It could be from Zamperla, Intamin, or Vekoma. And then, of course, there's the large-scale multi-launch coasters as well, or just single-launch coasters. So there's ones that could be, for example, from S&S with like the Axis coaster, which would be really awesome if the first Axis came here. I think it's going to come to the Six Flags Park first, but I could definitely see that happening in the next 5 years to Hersheypark. Or it could be an air launch from them, like Max Force. Then there's also the premier ones, like the large-scale ones, like a Skyrocket 2 if they're going for a cheaper edition, although I don't really see that happening as much. But Hersheypark is kind of a bit dense on land, so it would be compact enough. But there are other compact premier launch coasters, as well as S&S. Like something like Gale Force at Playland's Castaway Cove would be really awesome if it was just a bit bigger version. But other premier ones would include like Skyrocket at Kennywood, or maybe something a bit bigger and custom like Full Throttle at Six Flags Magic Mountain. But the most obvious choice for a multi-launch would be Mock Rides. They're very expensive, but they are very reliable and they're great fits, especially for this park. Something like Copperhead Strike that came to Carowinds last year, because it's a great fit for the families, but also the older thrill seekers. So it really finds that happy medium. So the final addition I want to include in the possible category is, of course, kids rides. Every park is going to add them on a relatively consistent basis. The last time Hersheypark did was in 2014, but they have a phenomenal selection of kids rides. I used to always go here as a kid, and they have just so many to choose from. And something to do that's a little bit different than traditional parks is they don't have a kids area, so there would be no like expansion of that sorts. What they do is they intersperse them in the rest of the park, so it's right next to the big ride, so kids can have an alternative to like their older siblings or their family or parents or whatnot. So I could definitely see that happening to maybe the Chocolate Town section, because to spruce it up a bit, add a couple kids rides that are alternatives for the more thrill seekers that would do Candemonium. So I could definitely see that happening soon, but they already have such a good collection, so I can't say it's likely. So now we're moving on to the ones that are more likely, that I think there's a really good chance this is going to come in the next 5 years. And the first one is the Wildcat RMC Hybrid, which is a very popular rumor. Wildcat is the first GCI coaster. It's running pretty rough, but has a very cool layout that could lend itself great to a smaller size but still phenomenal RMC. Something on the lines of Wicked Cyclone at Six Flags New England, which is one of my favorite coasters. But I think that there's actually possibly a more likely option, and that's a GCI Steel Retrack. I say this because GCI is right now promoting their new Titan track, which is going to make its debut in 2021 at Predator, the wind coaster at Six Flags Darien Lake. So I believe that is just going to be a pure retrack where they don't change the layout at all. But I think that for Wildcat, if they go with GCI Titan track or with the RMC iBox Steel track, I think either way they're going to be changing the layout, adding in inversions, great airtime moments, maybe even some sort of launch or something really crazy that just draws in the guests, because I feel like it's about time they do that. They already have a GCI coaster with Lightning Racer, which again, they could surprise us, and that could be the one getting an RMC, something on the lines of Twisted Colossus. I really think it's going to be Wildcat. And I think there's a good chance it's great coasters, because I bet the Titan track is cheaper than the RMC iBox treatment because it's a newer concept. Plus, Hersheypark has a great relationship with GCI. I mean, they're the only park in the world with multiple GCI roller coasters. But of all the roller coaster types that are going to come in the next 5 years as possibilities to Hersheypark, I feel like this steel retrack and changing of the layout of Wildcat is the most likely. The next likely thing, I think, is a small water park expansion. Something on the lines of maybe some large body slides maybe specifically drop capsules because I know those are very popular and they have them at most water parks. I feel like either of those would be a really great fit. And I think it's a good chance because Hersheypark has recently been investing heavily into their water park and will probably continue to expand it. The final addition I think is likely to happen in the next 5 years is some sort of large thrill ride, maybe even multiple ones. Some possibilities are a Funtime Star Flyer. It would be so cool if they got the biggest one in the world, even though I doubt it. But it would be awesome in Chocolatetown area, especially when you walk in, you have this massive swing ride. There could be a Zamperla Next Generation Enterprise, maybe a Gerstlauer Sky Roller, which would be really, really cool. They could replace their Claw Pendulum ride and instead get a massive Zamperla Giant or probably Giga Discovery, which would be really, really cool. Even though Great Adventure, again, pretty close by, has a Giga Discovery, I think it would still be awesome here. They could go something a little different, like a Mondial Top Scan, maybe even get like the largest Larson Super Loop if they want to. Or they could just go with a completely new concept, because there's always new thrill ride concepts being tossed around. But either way, I think that a thrill ride is a likely option in the next 5 years. Finally, I have very likely. There aren't any almost definite additions for Hersheypark in the next 5 years, but these ones I think there's a really, really good chance, and I'd be slightly surprised if it doesn't happen in the next 5 years. So basically all of them are new family rides, whether it's a family rides package or spread out over multiple years or just added 1 year. Parks are always adding new family rides. Hersheypark already has a phenomenal collection, but just some possible ones they could get. I feel like a Zamperla Disco Coaster would be pretty likely and would make a lot of sense here, as well as an old-fashioned Paratrooper. I think of Kennywood just getting rid of theirs this year. It would be so awesome if Hersheypark could pick it up, even though I think that's unlikely. Same with Kennywood's Kangaroo Flat Ride, which is one of my favorites of all time. Again, it would be so cool if Hersheypark could get some of these or other old-fashioned family classic fair rides. There's also, of course, like a Roundup or something entirely new or just another different type of less popular family ride. And the one last possibility is Flying Falcon, which is the Huss Condor attraction that closed in the park in 2016 and made way for the Triple Shot Drop Towers. So it would be so cool if this would come back, because there are a lot of rumors that it's still in storage, and it would make a perfect sense, just like a massive Star Flyer in the front entrance, since this is also a pretty tall tower ride. It stands about 100 feet, and it's such a unique ride. It'd be really cool if Hersheypark could keep that. So that's going to conclude all the different possible additions I think could come to Hersheypark in the next 5 years, and how likely I think those additions are. I encourage you all to comment down below what you guys think is going to come to Hersheypark soon. Suggest other parks that you want me to do Park Futures videos for, and like and subscribe for far more content coming soon to the Coaster Craze. I will see you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.